Have you ever wondered why some women walk into a room and every head turns, not because of their beauty alone, but because of something deeper, an aura of unshakable worth? It is not their dress, nor the pitch of their voice, nor even the curve of their smile. It is the invisible quality that Jung would call the manifestation of the self, the alignment of shadow and light, the quiet majesty of a woman who refuses to be reduced to an option. Luxury is not merely a material state. It is psychological. It is the resonance of knowing that your essence cannot be bartered, negotiated, or discounted. To be seen as luxury is to stand as the rare gem that others long for but cannot easily claim. This is not arrogance. This is individuation, the sacred journey where a woman integrates her fragmented parts, confronts her wounds, and emerges whole. She does not beg to be chosen because she already knows she is the chooser. Most women are taught from childhood to bend, to comply, to soften their edges until they are acceptable to others. They are trained to barter their souls for crumbs of validation. This conditioning is not love. It is domestication of the feminine fire. A luxury woman, however, unlearns this script. She withdraws her worth from the marketplace of desperate approval. She no longer asks, "Am I enough?" Instead, she poses a silent but piercing question. Is he, or anyone, enough to match my depth? And here lies the paradox. When you detach from the hunger to be valued, you become priceless. When you stop clinging, the world leans closer. Jung taught that what you most desperately chase will evade you, because the unconscious smells the odor of need. People recoil from desperation, yet they are magnetized by self-possession. Think of it. When you beg for attention, you shrink into an option. When you embody calm detachment, you expand into luxury. The woman who understands this begins to shift her energy. She no longer texts in anxious repetition. She does not contort herself to be more palatable. She does not explain her worth like a merchant hawking wares at a market stall. Instead, she withdraws into a quiet strength, allowing absence to speak louder than any words. Do you understand the power of this absence? The Stoics knew it well. Seneca wrote that a wise soul withdraws from clamor, and in that silence it grows formidable. Luxury is a vibration. It is the fusion of serenity and strength. It is the smile that suggests mystery rather than desperation. It is the posture that declares, "You may approach, but you will never consume me entirely." Luxury is not fast food, ready at every craving. It is a fine banquet, available only to those who show patience and respect. And here, your task is to decide, will you be consumed like bread on the table, or savored like wine that demands reverence? The psychology is simple, yet brutal. The human mind values scarcity. We chase what we cannot easily have. We desire what seems beyond reach. When you flood someone with availability, you erase the mystery that ignites pursuit. But when you master your shadow, the fear of abandonment, the terror of being overlooked, you step into a regal distance. That distance does not push people away. It compels them forward, hungry to close the gap. Consider the archetype of the queen. She does not chase the knight across the battlefield. She sits upon her throne, centered, unyielding, adorned not in jewels but in dignity. Knights cross oceans for her, yet she does not tremble at their departure. She understands her throne is not diminished by who kneels or who leaves. This is not about haughtiness. It is about recognizing that your throne is built upon your own soul, not the fleeting attention of others. But here is the challenge. Are you willing to endure the discomfort of being alone, so that you may never again be treated as an option? Jung would say that individuation demands confrontation with loneliness, the abyss where you face your own shadow. To become luxury, you must first embrace the void, and in that void, discover you are whole. Until you can sit in silence and not beg for company, you will always settle for crumbs. But when you learn to feast on your own essence, you radiate a magnetism that others cannot ignore. So ask yourself now, Do you still barter your time for scraps of attention? Do you still dilute your truth for the fear of rejection? Or are you ready to rise, to command the psychological space of luxury? The choice is brutal yet liberating, because once you decide, you will feel it. Your energy will shift, your presence will thicken, your words will weigh more, and suddenly you will see it in their eyes. They no longer view you as an option. They view you as rare, costly, untouchable. Luxury, once understood, is not simply about how others perceive you. It is about how you perceive yourself in the mirror of your psyche. The unconscious whispers constantly, shaping posture, tone, and silence. If the inner voice speaks of unworthiness, the outer world will mirror it with indifference. If the inner voice resounds with dignity, others will feel it before you utter a word. Jung knew this well. What you do not make conscious will appear in your life as fate. Thus, the woman who feels like an option deep within her bones will live a cycle of being treated as one. The woman who integrates her worth into her marrow cannot be touched without reverence. This is the essence of shadow work. A woman who hides from her own darkness, who fears abandonment, who drowns in jealousy, will leak that energy in every interaction. She may smile, but beneath the smile trembles the child who fears being left. And people sense it. They sense the hunger. They sense the fragility. But when a woman confronts her shadow, when she stares into the abyss of rejection and discovers that she can survive it, she becomes unshakable. This confrontation is painful. It feels like death, for part of the ego must die. Yet from that death arises a rebirth. The woman who no longer clings, who no longer begs, who no longer compromises her crown. Luxury requires boundaries. Not the fragile walls built out of bitterness, but the serene gates of self-respect. Boundaries are the architecture of worth. Without them, you are a city without walls, open to plunder. With them, you are a fortress, welcoming, but only to those who approach with honor. And this is where many falter, for boundaries demand courage. They demand you say no when your fear of loss screams yes. They demand you walk away from the table where love is rationed and sit proudly in solitude until you are met with abundance. The Stoics echoed this truth. Epictetus declared that a man is enslaved by what he cannot walk away from. And so too is a woman. You must become the one who can walk away without hesitation. That is the scent of luxury, detachment. Not cold indifference, but a warm, sovereign presence that is not enslaved by anyone's approval. Picture the ocean, vast, infinite, indifferent to whether one sailor departs or another arrives. It remains majestic, whole, eternal. That is the woman who embodies her own worth. She does not collapse when someone exits. She does not inflate when someone enters. Her tide flows by its own rhythm, not by the whims of passing ships. Do you see now why so many women are mistaken for options? It is not because they lack beauty or intelligence. It is because they have chained themselves to outcomes, surrendered their essence to the gamble of external validation. They have forgotten their inner sovereignty. They have abandoned their throne. But you, if you dare, you can reclaim it. Luxury is a paradox. It attracts by not chasing. It commands loyalty by demanding respect. It compels admiration by embodying restraint. This is not about playing games. This is about living in alignment with a deeper law of value. When you treat yourself as cheap, others believe you. When you treat yourself as sacred, others cannot help but follow. And so the question strikes: how much of your life has been wasted proving your worth to those blind to it? How many nights have you stayed awake, rehearsing words that would convince someone to stay? How many times have you offered discounts on your soul, lowering your standards, just to avoid the silence of being alone? This is the wound that keeps women small. Yet this wound can be healed, not by others, but by yourself. The healing begins when you stop running from the silence, when you stop seeing solitude as punishment and start seeing it as initiation. Alone, you learn the texture of your own soul. Alone, you learn that your worth is not measured in likes, texts, or glances. Alone, you reclaim your essence from the marketplace of desperate hearts. And when you return from this solitude, you return radiant, sovereign, magnetic, untouchable. Look again at the archetypes. The maiden pleads to be chosen. The lover clings to be adored. But the queen, she knows she is already whole. She honors the knight, but she does not kneel. She invites, but she does not beg. She reigns. And in that reign, men, friends, and even adversaries bend without her command. Not because she coerces, but because her presence is irresistible. This is the energy you must claim if you wish to be seen as luxury. It is not about tricks or tactics. It is about embodying the truth that you are not an option. It is about becoming the rare essence that cannot be bought, cannot be consumed, cannot be replaced. Luxury becomes unmistakable when scarcity meets substance. It is not enough to simply withhold yourself. If the core is hollow, restraint turns into manipulation. True scarcity only works when what is offered is rare in essence. And rarity is born not of pretense but of depth. The woman who has cultivated her soul, who has wrestled with her shadow, who has carved meaning out of her pain, she carries a depth that cannot be imitated. Depth is magnetic, because in a world intoxicated by surfaces, it is the only thing that quenches. Here is the paradox. People crave what unsettles them. They chase what makes them feel alive, even if it terrifies them. Shallow affection is comfortable but forgettable. Depth, on the other hand, is unforgettable, because it forces confrontation with the hidden self. When you embody depth, you awaken something in others they cannot explain. They return not because you chased them, but because something in their unconscious was stirred by your presence. Jung would call this the anima at work, the feminine force that illuminates the buried corners of the psyche. And once stirred, it cannot be ignored, but you must understand the danger. To be luxury is to be misunderstood. Many will resent you, because you will not be as easily consumed as others. Some will call you cold, aloof, arrogant. Yet these accusations are projections, shadows cast by those who fear what they cannot possess. They confuse dignity with distance, sovereignty with superiority. And you must resist the temptation to explain yourself. The queen does not rise from her throne to argue with peasants. She allows her presence to speak, and the misunderstanding of others to dissolve in its own time. The Stoics remind us that the opinions of others are outside our control. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you think yourself diminished by rejection, you will act diminished. If you know yourself as radiant, rejection becomes irrelevant. The mind sets the tone and the body follows. So you must dye your thoughts in the colors of luxury until they seep into every gesture, every word, every silence. Ask yourself, how do you move through the world? Do you walk with haste, apologizing for your existence, shrinking your space? Or do you walk slowly, as though time bends around your presence? Do you fill the room with nervous chatter? Or do you allow silence to serve you, letting others feel the weight of your gaze? These are not surface games. They are signals of self-concept. The unconscious reads them instantly. The one who rushes, who fills the air with words, reveals scarcity of spirit. The one who is still, deliberate, unhurried, she reveals abundance. Luxury is a rhythm. It is not frantic. It is measured. It is not desperate. It is serene. It is the rhythm of someone who knows she is the prize, not because she is told, but because she has faced the abyss and survived it. She has seen her shadow, touched her own wounds, and realized that even bleeding, she was still enough. And that realization has made her radiant. You must be willing to suffer for this transformation. The hunger to be chosen is primal. To sit in silence and feel unwanted cuts deep into the ancient wound of abandonment. But if you can endure this fire without running, you will find that on the other side of rejection lies invincibility. When you no longer fear being unloved, you become unshakable. This is the essence of individuation, the process Jung described as the reconciliation of the fragmented self. It is not comfort. It is not ease. It is the fierce journey into the underworld of your own psyche. from which you emerge whole. And when you emerge, your presence shifts. People cannot place their finger on it, but they sense something rare. They feel as if they are in the presence of someone they cannot replace. They adjust their tone, their posture, their words, not because you demanded it, but because the energy of luxury demands reverence without ever speaking it aloud. So ask yourself, with ruthless honesty, do you radiate scarcity or abundance? Do you leak need or do you embody presence? Do you diminish your own throne to accommodate others, or do you invite them to rise and meet you at your level? The answers lie not in the mirror of their actions, but in the mirror of your soul. For the world reflects what you unconsciously declare. If you declare yourself an option, they will treat you as such. If you declare yourself a luxury, they will see it, whether they admit it or not. The task, then, is not to force recognition. The task is to embody it so fully that recognition becomes inevitable. Luxury, when fully embodied, carries a sacred weight. It is not ornament, it is essence. It cannot be bought, borrowed, or copied because it arises from a woman's internal confrontation with herself. The world cannot grant it, for the world did not give it. And that is why the woman who becomes luxury radiates a quiet defiance against the machinery of modern validation. She is not enslaved by likes, by messages, by the frantic metrics of desirability. She knows her value long before anyone else does, and this knowing is what bends the room around her. Yet one must not confuse luxury with hardness. Too many scarred by rejection wear armor of bitterness and call it strength. But true luxury is supple, fluid, magnetic. It does not close itself off. It opens with discernment. Imagine a garden hidden by high walls. Not everyone may enter, but those who do are met with fragrance, color, and serenity. That is luxury. Not the denial of intimacy, but the refinement of it. Not everyone deserves your softness, but to the worthy, you give it freely, without fear of depletion. This distinction is vital. Some women, seeking dignity, confuse detachment with disdain. They shut out the world and call it sovereignty, but sovereignty is not isolation. It is selective openness. Jung would call this the integration of anima and animus, the marriage of the nurturing and the protective, the yielding and the resolute. To be whole is to embody both. You can caress with tenderness, yet still hold the sword of boundaries. You can listen with empathy, yet still walk away without hesitation when dishonor enters the room. Luxury is not only how you are treated by others, it is also how you treat yourself. Do you feed yourself crumbs of self-loathing, or do you nourish your spirit with rituals of dignity? Do you allow your body to be drained by chaos, or do you create spaces of stillness where your soul can breathe? Seneca once wrote that it is not that life is short, but that we waste much of it. Luxury begins when you stop wasting your energy on what does not honor you. Every hour spent in chaos is a theft from your throne. Every compromise of dignity is a crack in the foundation of your sovereignty. And so, to be luxury is also to be disciplined. Discipline not in cruelty to the self, but in devotion to your essence. It is the discipline of silence when your ego wants to shout. The discipline of patience when your heart wants to rush. The discipline of walking away when your shadow wants to cling. This is the path of individuation. Every choice is a mirror. Every boundary is a declaration. Every silence is a lesson. And over time, these choices carve into your being an aura that no one can counterfeit. But beware, there is a cost. To stand as luxury means you will be too much for some and not enough for others. You will be envied, resisted, misunderstood. Your radiance will awaken the shadows in others, and not all will thank you for it. Some will try to reduce you, to box you, to label you as difficult, intimidating, or cold. This is their fear speaking. It is the discomfort of standing before someone who cannot be possessed, and you must let them speak. Their words cannot touch your essence unless you allow them. Here lies the ultimate test. Can you remain still when others project their shadows onto you? Can you resist the urge to explain, defend, or shrink? This is where many falter. They abandon their throne to argue in the marketplace. But luxury does not argue. It allows misunderstanding to linger, knowing that truth will reveal itself in time. Luxury is patient. Luxury is eternal. Luxury does not chase fleeting recognition. The queen archetype holds this lesson. Her worth is not negotiated. Her presence is not dependent on applause. She is not addicted to being understood. She reigns in silence, and in that silence her power deepens. She knows that those meant to serve her kingdom will recognize her crown without explanation. Those who cannot see it were never meant to stand beside her. So you must ask yourself, relentlessly, are you still bending, still shrinking, still convincing? Or have you stepped into the rhythm of luxury, the rhythm that does not rush, does not beg, does not explain? The shift will not happen overnight. It is a slow death of the old self, a gradual rebirth of the sovereign one. But once it happens, once the aura of luxury settles upon you, nothing will ever be the same. You will no longer chase. You will no longer plead. You will no longer tremble in the presence of loss. You will reign. To embody luxury is to step into the paradox of longing and indifference. It is to allow desire to move through you without letting it chain you. Jung would say that within every woman lies both the hunger to be adored and the wisdom to be whole without it. When the hunger dominates, she becomes frantic, clinging, bargaining, dissolving herself in the name of belonging. But when wisdom rises, the hunger bows. Desire becomes a flame she enjoys, not a fire that consumes her. That balance is what makes her radiant, what makes her rare. The world cannot resist a woman who is unattached to outcome. This does not mean she feels nothing. It means her center is unshakable. Imagine a candle in the wind. If it flickers desperately with every breeze, it burns out quickly. But if its flame is steady, shielded by glass, it glows calmly no matter how fiercely the wind howls. That is the energy of luxury, a flame shielded by the glass of self-possession. You may feel desire, but you are not enslaved by it. You may love, but you do not lose yourself. You may connect, but you do not collapse. Luxury is not about resistance. It is about gravity. It pulls without chasing. It draws without pleading. It invites without begging. This is because its energy is full. The one who is empty must reach outward, grabbing, demanding, seeking. The one who is full radiates a gravitational pull, and others orbit naturally. That is why some women are unforgettable, even after their absence, because their fullness lingers like perfume in the air long after they have walked away. But fullness is forged in solitude. Many avoid it because it feels like death, but it is there that the soul is refined. Alone, you meet the parts of yourself you would rather abandon, the insecure child, the jealous lover, the abandoned girl. To become luxury, you cannot exile these shadows. You must take them by the hand, listen to their trembling voices, and fold them into your wholeness. Only then do you stop bleeding need into the world. Only then do you become complete. And this is the essence of individuation. Jung did not see the psyche as something to be perfected, but something to be made whole. Wholeness is not light alone. It is the union of light and shadow, of joy and sorrow, of vulnerability and strength. A woman who embodies luxury has not banished her shadow. She has befriended it. She no longer fears rejection because she has rejected herself in the past and survived. She no longer fears abandonment because she has sat alone in the dark and found company in her own soul. This is the power that makes her untouchable. In the eyes of others, such a woman is intoxicating. They may not understand why. They only sense that she is different. She does not play the games of desperation. She does not bargain with her dignity. She does not tremble when silence falls between messages. She does not rearrange her essence to fit another's expectation. She simply remains. And in that stillness, people feel a challenge. Can they rise to meet her, or will they falter in their own shadows? Either way, she does not move from her throne. Consider how quickly the mind loses interest in what is too easily claimed. The chase dies when the prize is cheap. But when something is costly, when it demands patience, effort, respect, It awakens something primal. The human psyche values that which resists being possessed. This is not a game. It is an archetypal law. The woman who embodies luxury is not withholding out of cruelty. She simply knows her worth cannot be rushed, cannot be consumed in haste, cannot be accessed without reverence. This is why luxury is never loud. True diamonds do not scream their value. They simply exist, and the world acknowledges them. The woman who declares her worth too often reveals that she doubts it. The one who rests quietly in her essence proves she has nothing to prove. Silence, in this way, becomes a weapon more powerful than words. Stillness becomes a magnet stronger than pursuit. And so you must learn to dwell in the pause. Resist the urge to over-explain, to over-give, to over-prove. Let the silence test those who approach you. Let the distance reveal who is drawn to you out of respect and who disappears when they cannot consume you. In this discernment, your sovereignty sharpens. In this waiting, your aura thickens. In this restraint, your luxury becomes undeniable. Luxury is not the absence of love, it is the refinement of it. It is not the absence of connection, it is the sacred filtering of it. You are not closing yourself to the world. You are opening yourself only to those who can honor the banquet of your essence. You are not denying your desire. You are elevating it beyond the reach of those who would treat it as a disposable thrill. And in this, you discover the greatest paradox of all. When you stop trying to be chosen, you become the only choice. Luxury is a kind of spiritual sovereignty. It is not bestowed, not inherited, not a fleeting mask. It is forged in the furnace of self-awareness. A woman who becomes luxury is not waiting for recognition. She already wears the crown in her own soul. Jung described this as individuation, the point where you no longer live through borrowed scripts of culture, family, or wounded desire. You live from the core, from the self, from the eternal flame within, and when you stand in that alignment, the world has no choice but to respond. Many women confuse attention with value. Attention is easy to earn, for it feeds on the shallow hunger of novelty. A loud voice, a revealing dress, a quick reply, all can command attention. But attention fades as quickly as it arrives. Luxury is different. It lingers in the mind, not because it shouts, but because it whispers with authority. It is remembered in silence, revisited in thought, desired in absence. That is the power of essence over spectacle. And essence cannot be faked, it must be cultivated. Cultivation requires courage. To embody luxury, you must strip away everything that is counterfeit. The need to be endlessly available, the compulsion to please, the reflex to perform. You must confront the fear that if you withhold, you will be forgotten. This is the lie that keeps women small, the belief that constant presence ensures love. In truth, constant presence breeds complacency. What is always available loses its taste. What is rare commands reverence. Do you understand the weight of this? To be luxury is to risk being overlooked by those who cannot rise to meet you. But this risk is the gateway to power. For those who pass you by are not a loss, they are a filter. Their absence clears the stage for the ones who are worthy. The woman who chases everyone loses herself. The woman who filters with patience finds her equal. Seneca warned that the man who values every opinion values none. The same applies to your essence. If you scatter it at every beckoning hand, it dissolves. If you guard it like a sacred fire, it illuminates. And in this guarding, you will begin to see the shift. Conversations become different. The tone in which others speak to you changes. They pause before they address you, as if something in them recognizes they are standing in the presence of someone who will not be cheapened. This shift is not in them, it is in you. Luxury requires embodiment. It is not enough to say you are rare. You must live as though you are. This means your words, your choices, your silences must all align. If you proclaim your worth but accept neglect, the unconscious reveals the contradiction, and others respond to the truth beneath your words. But if your actions reflect your dignity, if you walk away from dishonor, if you hold your silence rather than beg, If you sit alone rather than share space with chaos, then your essence speaks louder than any declaration. The archetype of the Empress carries this truth. She does not beg for fruit. The orchard is hers. She does not chase the harvest. The land answers to her seasons. She gives abundantly but never desperately. And those who approach her do so with reverence, because she has become synonymous with abundance itself. The Empress teaches us that luxury is not scarcity alone, it is fullness. It is the paradox of being whole in oneself, and therefore needing nothing, yet choosing to give from overflow. This wholeness terrifies those who rely on control. They expect compliance, malleability, the soft begging of someone who fears loss. But when they meet a woman who is already complete, they feel powerless. And in that powerlessness, they either rise to meet her or retreat into their own shadows. Either way, she does not bend. She does not chase. She does not collapse. She remains radiant and unyielding. The world will call this many things. Some will name it arrogance. Others will call it independence. Some will fear it. Others will worship it. But you must know the truth. It is not arrogance, nor coldness, nor pride. It is simply the natural state of a woman who has remembered herself. She has walked into the wilderness of her soul, met her shadow, faced her hunger, and returned whole. That is luxury, so let the world whisper. Let them misunderstand. Let them retreat if they must. You do not lose what was never yours to begin with. You do not chase what cannot honor your throne. Luxury does not move. It waits, it reigns, it shines, and in the end it is always seen, not as an option but as the only choice.